Today's episode is sponsored by TyPi. TyPi revolutionizes enterprise application development, turning business ideas into robust, data, and AI-driven solutions. With TyPi's drag-and-drop features providing intuitive user interfaces coupled with what-if scenario capabilities, TyPi empowers business analysts to make insightful decisions that are fundamental to drive today's dynamic business.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to Reporting Norms. This is Norm Osumi, your host. And today I have here with me Nancy Boling. Nancy is a strategic finance executive with a very extensive network and highly experienced at scaling systems and teams for rapid growth software or SaaS companies. Her current and prior clients include DataVent, Intap, Marvell, Netscape, Vaxart, VerdSense, Zeusk, and Zorro. She was also previously Senior Director of Finance at Adipar during a time when it grew 83% in revenue. She was also the Corporate Controller at SurveyMonkey during a time when the company was growing 450% plus in terms of its employee base. And then she was also Associate Director of Finance at Stanford's Highwire Press that was later acquired by Axel KKR Partners. In addition to that, earlier in her career, she served 11 years in 4 different PwC audit departments. They were in Atlanta, Nashville, San Jose, and Taipei, Taiwan. She has extensive experience in preparing and reviewing SEC documents, everything from S1s to 8Ks, everything in between, including SOX-related controls. She's also been intimately involved in over 20 M&A transactions, ensuring that both the acquirer and the acquiree were ready for the transaction. And she was able to successfully complete those M&A transactions that ranged anywhere between $2 million and $4.2 billion. Nancy also believes in giving back to her community, and she served 12 years on boards of finance committees of 3 not-for-profit entities. So, Nancy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. One of the companies that you had experience with was Netscape, I think over on Middlefield and Ellis in Mountain View, perhaps?
Yes, that is right.
How was that? That was like the early days of the internet. What was it like to be part of an organization that was kind of cutting edge?
It was fantastic. In hindsight, it was the funnest, smartest people I've ever worked with. And one example was there was a bet that Barksdale had with Mark Andreessen that they wouldn't win a certain client over. And so we did. And the bet was that Mark Andreessen had to get into the fountain right there at Middlefield. And so I was standing next to him, and he took his wallet out and he started to get in the in the fountain. I said, "Oh, good, I can go on a shopping spree." And he goes, "Oh no, my credit's awful. Oh, I don't pay my bills, so my credit's awful." I'm like, darn. But yeah, it was quite the ride. I was pregnant with my first child, and I was VP of Finance and Operations at a small company called Collabra, another great company founded and led by Eric Hahn. And so we were acquired by them, and then we had to get into the M&A mode, and it was quite the ride. But wonderful, very smart, fun people. So we did after our acquisition, we went on and did at least 5 more that I worked with, and then switched over to consulting role,
Okay.
starting a family.
Right. Yeah. So for the last many years, you've been an independent consultant and have worked at various companies. Tell us about some of your more recent clients and some of the challenges that they're faced, in light of some of these new technologies that we're encountering, especially in the back office, finance and accounting, financial reporting, et cetera.
Right. Well, one of my recent private companies, they were implementing NetSuite. So it was very interesting whenever I first came on board consulting. They never had an audit. Pricewaterhouse, our alumni, were the auditors. And in the past, I think it had been run by mostly salespeople. So it was quite the challenge. But what was impressive is whenever I first got there, a fellow consultant was helping with the NetSuite implementation. And whenever I started looking at her spreadsheets, the formulas went 3 or 4 rows. And so whenever I met with her, I go, "I'm super impressed with your Excel formula." She goes, "Oh, that's Claude AI." So that was very impressive because she had, using the Claude AI, that she could have it pull data from QuickBooks and Salesforce and then compare what was in NetSuite. So that was very impressive.
Okay. So she essentially leveraged AI to write the macro and then execute it within Excel, was it?
Right. Yes.
Okay. And then how did that help the implementation of NetSuite, or how did that kind of weave into the implementation process?
It was a huge help because with implementing NetSuite, you needed to compare what, we had. We needed to test and make sure what was, garbage in is garbage out. So we needed to make sure that the data going into NetSuite was accurate and that we could recalculate it on our own. So it was a huge help. But on that topic, it was interesting that, the auditors were a little nervous about the AI. So we had to, give management representation and, their big concern is that they want to make sure humans are involved, which they were. But yeah, we had to put that in a rep letter.
Okay, yeah. Oftentimes we call that human in the loop, or HITL, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll always need to be part of that equation. So really, the reliance on the AI macro was somewhat mitigated by just a rep letter. They did they do any auditing on the macro itself, or did they say, "Hey, you know what, you're repping to it, so that's good enough for us"?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not sure. They did have, several meetings with our team, and I think what they do is they do their own calculations, on their own, and then, compared it to what the spreadsheets were to what NetSuite had. So, that's how they got comfortable.
Yeah, that probably makes sense that they have to do some independent testing themselves. So with NetSuite, what kind of system did this particular client have before, and then what did they have before implementing NetSuite?
Yeah, typical timeline is they start with QuickBooks, and they were on
Oh,
QuickBooks.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that transition fairly easy from QuickBooks into NetSuite, or are there what do you think some of the challenges have been for you?
So, the key is scrubbing the data. I implemented NetSuite at Par, and it's all about scrubbing the data and making sure that that's clean, and of course, getting the auditors buy-in, the rev rec. So that is key, but it's always takes longer than expected, and it's good to have, resources, extra consultants, and because, you're usually focused on the business operations, and so it's hard to squeeze a NetSuite implementation in. But that is key, just getting the data correct and pulling in people that can focus on scrubbing the data.
Okay. And you're talking about chart of accounts and classifications and just the whole data hygiene thing. Keep sure that what starts out as clean goes in clean into the new system.
Right, and that also includes Salesforce, contract dates, beginning and end, terminations, yes, the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah, yeah. How long does that process take of, you know, the beginning, the launching the project and then actually going live on NetSuite? How long did that take you?
So, it took several months to, look at, other systems. And then from the time, it's like, we're going to do it, sign the contract, it's probably 6 to 9 months.
Okay. From beginning to end. And you mentioned that the people who are involved, the company personnel, this is kind of a side project, right? Where they're
Right.
trying to
Yes.
keep the lights on and close the books on a normal pace, but then put a new system into it. How did you manage staffing, or how did you manage, sort of having the lights on, doing their day-to-day work, and then kind of layer on this extra project on top of that?
Right. Well, I did pull in a consultant to help us out and help keep the wheels on the bus so that she could focus on the NetSuite implementation. And then what I also did was we had the luxury at Attapar that we had an empty floor that we were moving out of. So I moved the team up there to just be able to focus on the implementation. So there was just my team of, about 5 of us up there.
Oh, okay. Got it. Makes sense. With all of your networking and your experiences in managing teams, what insights do you have on developing relationships and managing teams? It seems like you have a very methodical approach on working with your teams. Do you want to go ahead and describe that a little bit?
Sure, relationships, in my opinion, are the key to success. And these days, everyone's trying to do more with less, that there's a lot of budget pressures. And, to quote a person, Stanley Allen from Dale Carnegie, who said, the most useful person in the world is the man or woman who knows how to get along with people. Human relations is the most important living science. So I echo that. And especially since COVID, I know it's been really hard for teams. A lot of teams have gone remote. So my private company just recently, they have people in Chicago and the Bay Area, Texas. So they flew them in for the first time and did, team building, and it was very beneficial. I just touched base with the controller yesterday, and he said that they set up their first OKR. So that was
Oh,
good. Yeah. So, and my heart goes out to especially people out of college just starting their careers. They're not having a lot of that in-person experience. And, I can't help but reflect on back in the day. I'm vintage, and so back in the day, we had started a happy hour that we did at Price Waterhouse in Atlanta. So we started one here, and it was about a group of 10 people, and we became very close friends, especially as people left Price Waterhouse. We went on camping trips together. We had kids together, and even went to the Bahamas together, and went to one of the early on weddings last year. So the kids are like cousins. So it's hard. I really sympathize with college graduates these days that they're not going to have that same experience where you gain these lifelong friendships, and also you can solve a lot of problems after hours. So that goes out, to those. But I think what has worked well for me in the past is I, of course, do one-on-ones with my individual team members, and I keep a Google Doc and have the date. And, to be honest, it's good in case you ever need it for HR purposes. You have a whole trail of what was discussed, what was expected, and the
right.
resulting notes. And then also what I tried to do is it was Eric Hahn who started this fireside chats where go out to lunch and just talk about anything except work. So I think that really helps build a strong relationship and mentorship. And then with the whole team, we get together quarterly. And again, I think people working remotely, it's important that you do it in person and do team building. We've done scavenger hunts in the past. Another one, I don't know if you've heard of it, is laughter yoga. That was a lot of fun. So
No, how does
feels
that work?
yeah. Well, if you Google it, what they say is whether it's fake laughter or real laughter, you get the same benefits. So there was a lady I had met, I think El Camino Hospital had an open house, and they had this lady who did laughter yoga, and a really nice. So she came and did a session at Atapar, and had appetizers and stuff out. So that was a lot of fun. It was kind of an icebreaker, and you mingled with each other, and you're laughing. So it's a good way to break down those barriers. And then we also did cooking classes. So it's also important to build those cross-functional relationships. So what I would also do at these quarterly or sometimes monthly meetings, I would invite people in. This is especially true at SurveyMonkey. People in from other departments, marketing, to do presentations because people like talking about what they do, and then it builds that relationship, and then people get to know what they do. Something besides accounting.
Right, right. No, that sounds really important. One of the things you mentioned earlier was doing more with less. Sometimes you hear people saying just do less with less, but oftentimes that's not really possible where
Right.
you just end up doing more with less. So, what have you seen companies do or implement to try to, leverage more productivity out of people, either by offshoring or AI or other tools? Well, what have you seen in recent years?
Well, my mantra, especially at SurveyMonkey, was one point of entry. You know, for example, all the data with a new hire and the HR system, have it flow automatically from there to the payroll, from payroll to the equity system, and have it reverse flow too. That's especially helpful for, taxation on NSOs and RSUs. So that was huge. And then I think what's important, it was what I would also do at these monthly meetings with my team, is have all the OKRs, KPIs, and we would just go through it on an Excel spreadsheet. I'd present it, and we'd have all of our quarterly goals, and we would have who's responsible, what's the estimated timeline, and that really helps. So I think having those KPIs prevalent, whether it's if they are in the office, laminating them, putting them on the wall in the office area, or I've even seen them done on the back of business cards. So those, well, that has helped, yeah. So then it makes everyone responsible.
Wow. I haven't given out a business card in a while. So, but that's maybe that's something that I'm missing here. You mentioned about the new staff, especially if they've been working remote. Do you think that not only, is the interrelationship of kind of interacting with people somewhat of a handicap, or it's harder to do remotely, but also what about work experience, sort of exposure to things like a voucher package or a
Right.
federal ledger, or
Yeah.
a clerk that does the job, how do you, what do you, do you think that that's becoming more challenging from a training standpoint?
I believe so. And, I haven't, to be honest, had fresh out of college employees or, interns in a few years. That is true. It's just, again, building those relationships, knowing that if you meet in person, it's somebody you can just tap on the shoulder in the office if you need help. But I think what's really super sad for these new hires, for some reason, society has decided, okay, people can only be employed from age 25 to say 45. So, and then you have to support yourself for the rest of those years. So I think it's super hard. So, and again, in this Price Waterhouse group of 10 families, unfortunately, and they're mainly, computer science majors, that they've had a super hard time finding jobs. So, and then, by chance, again, this in-person experience, it was under unfortunate circumstances, but my youngest had, been looking for 6 months, sent out, 260 some odd resumes, again, computer science major. And it was at a memorial service that I ran into a former friend of ours, and Do you remember my son? He's looking for a job. So it led to, him interviewing and eventually getting a job. So praise the Lord for that.
Wow, you just never know where the networking will actually happen, don't can you?
It's being at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, you've always been an expert networker. It seems like you know everybody in the Bay Area. So maybe the PwC, happy hour was the genesis of that. But is there, something that is secret to your success on networking and just being connected to so many people? What's your secret?
Well, as you know, I'm originally from the Southeast. I'm from Tennessee. And I think, that Southern hospitality gives me an advantage. And to that topic, I remember when I first transferred out here, by chance, I had a client and she was the director of company and she was from Memphis. And, I talked to her, I said, "Do you ever feel that you're at a disadvantage with your accent?" And she goes, "No, actually, I found it dealing in business is an advantage, a softer approach." So I took that to heart. But yeah, very, very blessed with my social gene. I get that from my mother.
Okay. Yeah, then so that's it. Just effective communication and just being very friendly.
Right. And my mantra is just bring joy to people. Yeah.
That's a great mantra, isn't that though? We need some more grief, for God's sake.
Or hatred. That's problem with politics. A lot of hatred involved.
Oh yeah. We won't need to talk about that. But so are you in-house kind of commuting into an office right now, or are you pretty much working remotely?
No, that was a blessing of COVID. I was prior to COVID, or actually when COVID hit, 2 days a week I was getting up at 4:15 a.m. and biking to the Mountain View train station from Saratoga, and then catching the train from there, and then walking a mile to my client. Yeah, so I could work in the train, so that part was nice, but it was exhausting.
Wow. Wow. That is quite a commute there.
Yeah. So now I can work anywhere.
That's really nice, isn't it? Because you work both in the Bay Area and in Tahoe, as well as some other locations in the East Coast as well.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So when we did a cross country trip, what helped, my husband got an arm that you could just, suction on the windshield and I could hold up a big screen. So I could have two screens in the car. So that worked really well.
oh wow! So you actually two screens in your car. Were people watching you and saying, what's that? What's going on in there?"
Well, some of the truck drivers, I think, as they passed, were wondering what's going on. But it worked out great.
That sounds pretty interesting. Because your husband is a technician, not only a software but hardware guy. So he solves all of your computer problems.
Right, he's my IT department, but yeah, one of my clients, coined me the passenger princess whenever we did that cross country trip. He was driving and I was working, so yeah, it was a win-win.
Well, it's been delightful chatting with you, Nancy. Anything that you could impart to to our listeners that are finance and accounting professionals that you'd like to impart to them as some closing thoughts on your secrets to success and what may be critical success factors for them?
Yes, and I think, especially, again, this post-COVID nature of things, whenever I was at SurveyMonkey, I always had a very close relationship with FP&A, and now I'm not seeing that at my current client. So I think, to be honest, they can make or break a business. So I think it's very key to build those cross-functional relationships. And again, automate when possible. And also, whenever you're automating, make sure to keep the metrics of, this is like we implemented an AP system at SurveyMonkey and track, how many transactions you could go through before the automation and after so that you have the proof of your success.
Okay. Kind of measuring your improvements would be demonstrated. Okay. Well, super interesting, Nancy. Thank you very much for your time.
Sure.
And I wish you the best in the rest of 2025 and in everything that you do.
Thank you for having me, and I wish you the same.
Okay. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.